Hello and welcome. And I'm really pleased today we have Benjamin Fraser, who's an attorney at law, and he will be doing a tour of the UK. So he's behind the Land and Estate Law Expo and Legal Clinic. So welcome, Benjamin. Hope all is well.
Thank you, Sir Page. Yes, I am well. Thank God. I'm in Jamaica where it's a sunny day and it's a good day. And I'm happy to
Excellent.
be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So, Benjamin, just tell us a bit about your family and professional background briefly.
Well, I am newly married, you could say.
Okay.
I'm just about 2 years in. I am an uncle of three very vibrant nephews and a niece, and I really do love my family. I was born and raised in Jamaica. I still live in Jamaica. All of my education from kindergarten all the way to postgraduate has so far been in Jamaica. And I completed the last leg of my studies to be able to practice law in Jamaica in 2021. And I've been in practice since. My areas of focus are estate matters, family matters, property matters, and civil litigation. So in summary, I would say that I'm a churchman. So if you go on my personal social media, you will also see that. And it would be a disservice to myself if I didn't include that in my introduction.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes.
So, Benjamin, what inspired you as a Jamaica-based attorney at law to host a land and estate expo legal clinic in the UK? And of course, when we say UK, we're talking about London, Birmingham, and Manchester next month between the 13th and the 26th of June.
Well, the inspiration came from a desire to help Jamaican families away from home. I have several family members who live outside of Jamaica who are no less Jamaican and no less connected to Jamaica. And I've seen the kinds of matters that they have where legal support would be very necessary. And so I started reaching out primarily to churches, asking for the opportunity to share with their membership legal information that would help. I started out virtually. I took the leap of faith to go in person because I realized if I wanted to build trust that would result in actually being put in a position to help that is being retained, then maybe being face to face would help. So I started in the US, then I went on into Canada, and now that's why I'm turning my eyes across the Atlantic, trying to engage the very strong, vibrant, and present Jamaican diaspora in the UK.
Okay. So how does Jamaican land and estate law uniquely impact members and members and families and the descendants compared to the residents who are actually living in Jamaica?
So, Jamaica's history is colored by migration in different directions. We have had migration to our island in the coming of enslaved peoples, and we have had migration where our people have gone to other places of the world. And with every direction of that migration comes challenges. With the outward migration that Jamaica has experienced over the last 60 years since independence, we have many people, whether they were born in Jamaica and migrated, or they have raised families who were not born in Jamaica, but are of Jamaican descent, and they have assets and interest in properties in Jamaica. And their absence, their outward migration, in many cases, puts them at a physical disadvantage to protect what is theirs and what they're entitled to. And so those persons who find themselves in that category of, if I could put this in a gentle way, absent Jamaicans. You're not here, but you are very much Jamaican. You want the help to protect your interest in the property that you are entitled to, that you own, that you purchased, that you labored for, that you hold much sentimental value in.
And of course, may have inherited.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. As well as Jamaicans who want to purchase, non-Jamaicans who want to purchase. This is an island paradise. And because, of course, of this history of outward migration, we have many people. The last statistics I hear is over 3 million Jamaicans across the world. That's more Jamaicans out than in the island. And so many people outside want to be connected with legal support to protect and enjoy what is theirs here in Jamaica.
Okay. So what can attendees expect from the Expo and Legal Clinic in terms of services, guidance, and outcomes?
All right, wonderful. So the Expo will be convened in London on June 13 at the Cumberland Hotel, Marble Arch, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can expect to hear presentations from an attorney at law, that's myself, a commissioned land surveyor, and this is particularly important for persons who have family land who want to register, get that property, a registered title. A commissioned land surveyor is essential to that process. We have a developer, a construction company. Many Jamaicans, you know, you often hear stories of building and the kinds of issues that they face with those projects. Construction 365 Company Limited, the principal director, Lincoln Powell, we believe, and with our experience with him, and he's also a sponsor of the tour, he is highly recommended, and there will be representation virtually from the company. You will hear from Allied Real Estate Jamaica, the brokerage that lists properties from St. Thomas all the way to Hanover within various price ranges, property types. You'll get to hear from real people on the ground the opportunities that are available to purchase. And if you want to list property that you have in Jamaica, that's something that the Expo on June 13 in London and on June 20 at the Rock New Testament Church of God in Birmingham, you'll be afforded the opportunity to hear that information. Importantly, on June 13, when you register, you will be entitled to a one-on-one 25-minute consultation. However, that consultation will be scheduled on a day before or after the 13th. The session on the 13th won't allow me to meet with all the attendees, but certainly on a day before or after, your ticket secures you that 25-minute consultation.
Okay.
Now, on the 16th to the 17th, I'll be in Manchester for a legal clinic for 2 days. And if you want to have a one-on-one consultation, you're in Manchester, you can also sign up there. Thank you, Mr. Page.
So are there any common mistakes or misconceptions you frequently see when people abroad try to manage or transfer property in Jamaica?
Absolutely. I'll give you maybe 3 or 4 scenarios, unfortunately very common. Now, there are people who think that by just paying, for example, property taxes, they are now owners of property. and they pose as someone being able to sell, and they attract interested purchasers. And these people pay monies directly to that person who thinks they now have title. And when it's time for the purchaser to actually get title, they can't. Because this person posing as the owner is not the owner. They've already paid monies to them. And unfortunately, in several instances, that person vanishes. Can't hear from them. They may even die. Can't get a title. I've seen it as recently as a few days ago. Another unfortunate common mistake made in the property and estate affairs is there's a will, and because there's a will, everybody thinks the will is sovereign, self-sufficient. We don't need to do anything else. Mommy or daddy wrote the will, and everybody should abide by it. The will must be validated by a court. It should go through a process called probate. I've encountered several families who just say, well, there's a will and this is what was said, and we leave it there. It's unsafe to do that, because then when it's time for the title to actually pass legally to the transferees, people are making different claims that don't necessarily accord with the will, or even if that will isn't valid, it's a different scenario in distribution of the assets. So I would urge my brothers and sisters, if there is a will, consult an estate attorney to deal appropriately with that will. Another scenario that happens commonly is the writing of gifts, the writing of letters to say, I gift you this, I gift you that, and thinking that's a transfer. And so, somebody feels this was the letter that was signed by the JP. This was the letter, for example, that was signed by mom or by dad or grandma. It's mine. That's not how a transfer is appropriately done or legally done. And so while you may feel like there is an ethical obligation amongst your peers and your siblings or your family members to acknowledge the wishes of the person who gifted the property, really there's no legal standing. So I think those are three of the common scenarios that I see very frequently.
Okay, they are very good and important examples. So how and you kind of touched on it. So how important is it for Jamaicans who are living overseas to regularize their property and estate affairs, and what risks do they face if they don't do that?
The first risk that is, I would also almost say, existential to persons who are overseas is the risk of adverse possession.
Okay.
Which is a legal route for a person who has entered upon property without permission of the registered owner or the beneficiaries to take control of that. Mm. I've met many people who have said, there's property in Jamaica that I know I'm entitled to, but I don't know where it is. I don't have any documentation for it. I can't, but I just know I've heard of it. I know that, some family member own this and there could potentially be an interest for me. Mm. And that usually results from a chain of family members failing to settle the generational obligation of the transfer of wealth. Yes? Then there is the issue of multiple families within a family. Yeah. Cousins. Yes. And multiple siblings. Mm-hmm. Yes. And people building multiple homes. Mm-hmm. And people wanting to subdivide lands. Mm-hmm. There are large acres of lands in Jamaica sitting idly because of unsettled estates. Mm-hmm. And unless the government goes in compulsorily under the Land Acquisition Act, those properties, you can't just go and take them over from the family unless you go by adverse possession. So, you know, if it's unsettled, nobody can agree, nobody has settled the estate, the land, it just sits there. And sometimes you drive through Jamaica and we wonder, why is this land not being used? Why is this land not being used? Why isn't it being developed? It's not being developed because of long-standing estate issues, family issues that need to be dealt with.
So finally, what practical steps should someone in the UK, for example, take right now if they believe they have an interest in land or an estate in Jamaica?
All right, I'm going to give you my long answer. This being my final question. So if you're coming to any of the events in June and you know of a real situation that you want to deal with, bring any documentation that you think may assist you. That could be a copy of a title. If it's not registered land, take the survey diagram if you have it. You may have what is called a deed of conveyance. You may have what is called an indenture. If you have the will that's not probated, take it. Let's have a look at it. If you have, importantly, a property tax receipt that we could use the valuation number from that receipt to do a search to trace that property and maybe detect whether or not there is a title for the property and whose name that title is in. So please, if you're coming and you want help, bring the documentation. If you don't have any documentation, but you know someone in Jamaica or you know where the property is, the next option is to engage a surveyor to assist you in identifying the property on ground. And I've helped several persons do that because they don't have any documentation, but they're able to direct someone or they're able to point it out themselves. Excuse me. Thank you. So property can be identified, and in identifying the property, that's the next phase of questions. Have I been dispossessed of my interest in the property? What does that mean? Do I still have a legal right to the property? Has 12 years passed without me, the beneficiary, or the owner making any contact with the persons on the property, if there are persons? Is it now fenced? Who has built that fence? Who has maintained that fence? Yes, even if there isn't a change in title by way of an adverse possession application, have they now acquired a right over the property under the Limitation of Actions Act, Section 3? These are questions you would want to probe before taking on the expense of regularizing your ownership, because maybe you have lost your right to it.
Right.
So you, for example, might go off to try to probate a will, but the will have no effect because the property is now no longer part of the estate. So if you want the help, one, bring the documentation. You do have the documentation. The next step is to locate the property, and we'll do an assessment using really the legal knowledge and a bit of common sense to see whether or not you can still make the claim. Once we settle all of that, the next step is for us to provide you with legal advice on what is to be done, an estimate of the fees and costs associated with doing it, and then it will be in your courts to decide how you want to proceed thereafter.
Okay. So where can people get hold of you? It's a website, is there a telephone number before we close?
Yes. So for the purposes of this event, I am encouraging persons who want to attend to register at www.legalbyfraser.com. Once you go on the homepage, you will see the instructions of how to register. That's not to say that if you don't get to register, you can't attend, but to properly manage and plan, I would really appreciate if persons who are interested would register for the event. It will take you to an Eventbrite link so that you can fill out the information and register. If you want to ask any questions before deciding if you want to attend, you can send an email to info@legalbyfraser.com. That's info@legalbyfraser.com. And you can also call us by WhatsApp. We know that international calling fees would be expensive, so we're very accessible by WhatsApp at 876-436-4673. That's 876-436-4673. Our office is located in Kingston, Jamaica, but we are accessible virtually to all Jamaicans living overseas.
Thank you very much, and good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Page, and all the best to your listeners.
Thank you.